So again, my name is Lisa and I'm with the Welland Public Library, and I'm introducing Kelly Taylor-McNeil, who has been a branch manager at First Ontario Credit Union for several years. And she's been delivering programming to various organizations, including this one since 2018. So thank you very much, Kelly, for joining us today. And I'm going to share or send it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. So today we are speaking about RESPs, and a little background on myself. I have been with the credit union for almost 10 years now, and I'm a branch manager in St. Catharines. I am super passionate about teaching financial literacy. Financial literacy is something that we all need, no matter what our age. And when I had the opportunity to take this course, it's called Each One Teach One. It's a course that one of the credit unions out west had been involved with, and now a lot of credit unions are jumping on this to make sure that we have staff who are able to give these presentations to our local communities. Being in the branch, I see all sorts of families, people who are maybe struggling or don't understand finances, and this is just something that I feel we should all be learning from a young age, and that's why I take the opportunity whenever I can. And thanks to Lisa and for inviting me here to be able to share this, because I feel it's really important. And RESPs, especially when your children are young, or even as they grow up, it's great to take advantage of these, because there are ways to get money back from the money you put in. So we'll get started. If anyone has any questions, absolutely let me know. Just you can raise your hand, wave to me, yell, whatever you need to, hands up here, just to let me know that you have a question. So what we're going to talk about today is what an RESP is, Registered Education Savings Plan. So we don't always use acronyms, and how they work, how to decide what type of RESP is best for your family, and about the free money that can help grow your RESP, and much more. So what is an RESP? As I said, it's a Registered Education Savings Plan. It's a valuable tool to help you save money for education. We all know education is expensive and getting more expensive every year. It seems that everyone needs to go somewhere after high school in order to get further education and take a look at what type of jobs and opportunities are available for them. So true or false, the average hourly wage for university graduates is more than double that of high school graduates. You want to take a guess on that one? The average hourly wage for university graduates is more than double that of high school graduates. So here, I'll give you the answer. It's true. So some jobs definitely need a university degree, others need a college degree, but whatever kids plan to do as they graduate from university or college, and likely will make more money if they go on to further education. So that's why we say it's quite important and a great opportunity for them. Why have an RESP? So there's many reasons to have an RESP. First of all, before I get into even the details, having a savings plan is important. If you don't have that savings plan where you set something up to put money in on a regular basis, it's hard to save. Like, you really do need a goal. I teach a lot of budgeting courses, and that's the one thing we talk about, is having that plan in place. If you don't have the plan in place, chances are you're not going to reach that goal of being able to help your kids with university or college. So the RESP, government grants help grow the investment. Children with RESPs have higher high school graduation rates, so they already know that there's money put away for them and there's a plan for them. Really helps them when they are in high school. Children with RESPs are 6 times more likely to do post-secondary studies. So the cost of post-secondary education. So right now we're a little further back in these stats, so it's more now. The average university tuition in 2013-2014 was $5,772 per year. It's upwards of $6,000 to $7,000. I believe my daughter at Brock last year paid about $8,000. Books and supplies, $800 to $1,000, maybe a little higher now. Costs increase, as it states here, 5% per year. The estimated cost in 10 years, that's where we're coming up to now, so I wasn't far off, $9,750. And that's living at home. That's not even including rent or anything like that. That's staying at home. So the government RESP grants, who can get these? All children who are Canadian residents and who are named in an RESP. The grants are applied until the end of the year the child turns 17. There's also something called a Canada Learning Bond. This is possible free money of $2,000. This is for families that receive the National Child Benefit for children born on or after January 1st, 2004. $500 will be given to you when you set up the RESP, and then $100 per year after that. No need to contribute to get the learning bond. So as long as you've opened it up and you meet this criteria, then you would be able to get the Canada Learning Bond. Regular Canada Education Savings Grant. So this is the one that everyone would get. So it's 20% on every dollar of the first $2,500 you save each year. The maximum amount per year is $500. There is a catch up for missed years if you started later. The lifetime maximum, and I think Lisa, you and I had spoke about this earlier, is $7,200. So as you're putting money in, you're getting 20% on that first $2,500, which is great. I mean, obviously you have to put the money in, but you know that you're going to grow it, and we'll talk a little bit later, but if you're earning interest on that, you're growing it even more. The Enhanced Canada Education Savings Grant is based on your income, either 10% or 20% additional grant on the first $500 you save each year. Cannot catch up missed years, and the maximum is $100 per year. So the amount is included in the $7,200 lifetime maximum. So this is a chart. If my child gets the Canada Learning Bond and I put 0 into my RESP, how much would I get? So this shows you, because if you put it in right in at birth, you open it up, you're getting $500 right away. So you haven't put anything in. If you look, there's no one's put anything in for this. But of course, the interest will compound annually, depending on how much you make. There's different ways of investing it. And this shows you how much you could have at the end of 17 years, putting $0 in. If my child gets the CLB and I put $1 a day into my RESP, how much money? So $1 a day, looking at $365 a year, look how much money you would have at the end. We're up to, again, assuming you're making 2% on the investment, $13,708. So it will at least cover 1.5 years of university. So true or false, if I open an RESP for my child and she doesn't go to college, I will lose all of that money. Anyone have any idea of the answer there?
So I think it's false. Is that
true, Kelly?
Yeah.
You're correct. Because you're not going to lose the money that you put in. The grants you will not get, but you won't lose any of the money that you've put in or any interest earned. So that's the nice part. It's not like you're giving away your money. It's just those grants cannot be taken out unless the child is going to school. So there's 3 types of registered education savings plans: individual, family, and group or pooled. So an individual plan, so we call the person who's depositing to the RESP, or the person that opened it up, the subscribers. That could be a parent, a grandparent, or a primary caregiver. So the individual plan is for one person. So if you look here, it's got plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. Because these people aren't all necessarily in the same family, when you include the niece, you do 3 separate plans. So the daughter, there's an adopted son, and there's a niece. So these are 3 separate plans. So the money will have to, when you put money in, you have to individually target it to those plans. I set up an individual plan for my son, but he never will attend post-secondary. Can I transfer the RESP to my niece? So there's a few challenges here. It depends where you've opened your RESP and what some of the rules are at the financial institution. Generally, you would not be able to do this. You could transfer it to someone in your immediate family though, whether it is the adopted son, sister, that sort of thing. So that's really what happens with the individual plan. Again, like I said before, if he didn't attend post-secondary, you can certainly take the funds out, but you would lose the grant money. So family plan, yeah, Lisa.
So with that then, if you transferred it to say the adopted son, would you lose the grants as well? Or do the
No, you
grants
should not,
transfer
because
as
they're in your immediate family. So, but you would only get the maximum.
Mhm.
So if it was, because with the family plan, like I have 3 kids in my family plan, so I'm getting grants based on the 3 up to when they're 17. So depending on what that adopted son already has, you may or may not lose those grants.
Yes, I'm thinking that I adopted and he was already 7. And so I
Yeah.
lost 7 years from birth, but I did start for that child that didn't go to university from birth. So there's sort of that 7 years that could go over to the other child then.
Yeah, and there's a couple challenges when you do the family plan. I'm going to talk about it now, because there's only a certain amount of time that you can deposit. I believe it's to 35 years that it can be open. So depending on the age of the kids, that could make it more difficult for that final child. They would have to be at school at a certain age, because then the plan can't stay open anymore. So it's trying to figure out the logistics of how old your kids are, what the age gap is, and that sort of thing. Down here is an example of a family plan. So you've got parents opening a family plan for son, daughter, and adopted child, or grandparents can do a family plan where they do grandson, granddaughter, grandson. So you've got 2 different families there when it's the grandparents. I have contributed for 10 years to a family plan, and now I have a new child. Should I add her to the family plan or start a new plan for her? So these are the ones where you really need to think about it, because I have, there's documentation down here that I was reading earlier about it, because it gets complicated when you're looking at these, because there's only so much time that you can contribute. So it's a 31, sorry, I said 35, I correct myself, 31-year contribution limit. So to add that new child, they may have fewer years to accumulate those funds. So really depending, if you already had it for 10 years, you might want to do an individual plan for that child, so that they've got all that time. They've got those 31 years. They would accumulate the grants still till they're 17, but you still have 31 years to be able to deposit. It's hard to tell when they'll go to university. I mean, you hope it's right after high school, but looking at a pandemic, things have changed so much. I bet there's lots of kids that aren't going right away. So it's just trying to weigh it out. And I always say, talk to your financial advisor, because they're the best ones to know your situation. A group or pooled plan. So we don't deal with these as much at my credit union, but it's where there's different subscribers, different families, and it's pooled plan. You often will see these, you get those pamphlets. I remember leaving the hospital when I had the kids, there was those pamphlets that were like, save money for your kids' education. So a lot of those are the pooled plans. So you basically commit to an amount and you're putting it in, and then it's all invested together. So you're not necessarily affected by the other people. It's just, it's pooled money. So there's different ways to invest that money. I've been contributing to a group plan for 6 years, but I'm having trouble making the payment. Should I stop contributing? So that's a challenge. If you stop contributing, it's harder to, because it's a pooled plan, there is a bit of a dependency there. Although you're not necessarily affecting people by how many kids you have, you still need to be careful with that. That's why you want to make sure that it's the right thing for you. And again, I always say, talk to your financial advisor. So where to open an RESP account? So there's many different places. You can see there the group plan, the scholarship plan dealer. So again, that's the people that are specifically do those group plans. Banks, credit unions, mutual fund company, investment firm, trust company, and then scholarship plan dealer. So you really need to take a look at what's best for you. Take a look at what your family situation is, what would make sense for you, how much you can put aside. They can certainly do different calculations to say, okay, if you put this much aside, this is how much you're going to have in 10, 15 years. But it's best to start early. I always say people should be starting like the day that child is born, start saving, because it's just so expensive and just keeps going up and up. Documentation you will need. So once you've selected the financial institution you like to deal with, you will need to bring your child's social insurance number and their birth certificate. I believe they make it easier to get social insurance numbers now. Once you've had your baby and go through all the documentation to get the birth certificate, the social insurance number is done right away. When I had my kids, I had to do it separately. And a lot of people don't do it till their kids get a job. And then they kind of panic and go, oh, I need a social insurance number because you're getting a job. So it's really important to get that as soon as possible. Sadly, they don't give you a card anymore. It's just a piece of paper. So you need to make sure you take care of that piece of paper and tell your kids they need to memorize their social insurance number. Please make sure to bring the original documents with you to the appointment. So you would bring that piece of paper with the social insurance number and obviously the birth certificate in order to get this started. And you cannot open an RESP without their social insurance number. Questions to ask before you sign any RESP contract. So you want to talk about fees. Now, when I say fees, often when you invest with mutual funds and that sort of thing, there can be handling fees. So you want to find out what those fees are, how it works, and when they're charged. Are they upfront or are they when you withdraw from the plan? Do you have to make regular contributions? Again, it depends where you set it up. In my world, you don't have to make regular contributions. You can come in and make a lump sum at birthdays, or you can just make a lump sum because you found some additional money that you want to use, or you can set up a regular contribution. My advice would be to set up a regular contribution. As with anything, if you make that plan, make that commitment, it will definitely make it easier to continue, and you'll just be used to paying that money out monthly or weekly, bi-weekly, however you want to do it. What happens if you miss a contribution? So if you have something set up and then you miss a contribution, you need to make sure that there's not a fee, that there's not some kind of charge. Is it an NSF, that sort of thing, non-sufficient funds to be specific. What investment options are available? So you definitely want to find that out. You want to do the best for your money. Not everyone goes into mutual funds or the market. There are certainly ways to invest where you're not going into the market. Those often, if you're not going into the market, it's guaranteed that interest. If you're going into the market, you will sit down with a financial advisor and they will go through a series of questions to make sure that they understand what your risk tolerance is. Because when you go into the market, you are risking the principal money that you're putting in. So you want to make sure you're not going into something where you would lose all that money. Markets went really wild during the beginning of COVID. So it was interesting watching what my RESPs were doing. A little daunting, but that's where you need a good financial advisor to speak to you. When and how payments will be made from the plan. So if you're putting money in, how are you doing that on a regular basis, or how do you get the money in the plan? And also, how do you get money out of the plan? Is there a time period? Like, how long does it take to get the money? Are the plan's rules more restrictive than the government rules? So this is important because everyone has different rules. Everyone has different ways that you have to get your money out. Like, we all need confirmation of university, and we'll talk about that, university or college, sorry. But everyone's rules are a little different. Some places want to pay the money direct to whatever it is you're paying, to the school, that sort of thing. Other places will release the money for you and you pay for it. But that money has to be directed to specific things. So you need to make sure you understand what you can use the money for. So RESP products. So there's variable savings accounts. So this is a savings account within an RESP. When it says variable, it means that you can often take the money out. Like, it's not locked in. You haven't put it into an investment where it's locked in and it expires at a certain time or renews at a certain time. With a variable savings account, you are going to make less interest because it's available. They're not going to give you as high of an interest rate. Term deposits or guaranteed investment certificates, those are what I was talking about outside of the market. That's a guaranteed interest rate. Again, won't be as high as the markets necessarily, but it's guaranteed. Your interest is guaranteed and your principal is guaranteed, and it would be higher than the variable savings account. Mutual funds, stocks, and bonds. So that's where you need to sit with a licensed advisor and really talk to them about what your plans are, because they're going to look at how long you need this money. If it's a short term because you're putting it in a bit later and your child is older, you're going to have to take a look at what you can do, biggest bang for your dollar, but you want to make sure that you're not going too high risk. If it's a longer term, you can take a look at some different investments. But again, everyone is different, and that's why licensed advisors have to ask you a lot of questions. So be prepared to answer questions, because they want to know what your risk tolerance is, what your goals are, and what time horizon you have. So super important to have that conversation. Contribution rules. There is no annual limit. You can put in as much as you want, but there is a lifetime limit of $50,000 per beneficiary. So you can put all 50,000 in 1 year, but then you're at your limit. So 50,000 is the lifetime limit of each beneficiary to put into an RESP. I should note, RESP is tax sheltered. So when you're making interest on that RESP, the interest, you're not paying tax on that until it's taken out. When it is taken out, the tax is paid by the child. So because ideally, when they take it out, they should be in a lower tax bracket, and it shouldn't cost them really much money at all to do that. That's if they're going to university or college. If you take it out yourself, then it's a little different, because you're taking it out yourself as opposed to giving it to them. So how does it work? You deposit money into your RESP account. The eligible government grants and the bond are automatically added. The balance grows tax deferred. So you fill out forms when you first open the RESP. These are the government forms that are for the bonds and the grant. So you fill it out. The government already has your information. You're obviously going to give them your SIN number, your full name. You're going to bring in ID. So they are able to figure out what your income is, because some of those bonds or grants are geared to income. But again, everybody gets that one eligible grant, regardless of what their income is. What qualifies as a post-secondary institution? So this is something I was saying earlier. When we do these at our branch, we don't do them all the time. So when we do them, we really have to make sure we know and understand what the rules are. And sometimes it is questionable, because people will come in and say, I'm doing this trade, here's how many hours a week I do, but it turns out it's not certified, or there's something that doesn't qualify. So that can happen. So it's universities in Canada and internationally, community colleges, vocational and technical colleges, and HRSDC certified institutions. So that's your human resources certified institutions. So we need to make sure that we're using qualified post-secondary institutions in order to take those funds out. What is a qualifying education program? Full-time study. Post-secondary program, a program lasting 3 or more consecutive weeks, a program requiring students to spend 10 hours or more per week on courses or work in the program. So it gets a bit tricky. Like, we definitely ask for confirmation of how the course works, and then we need to take a look at it. So there's a few variables here on what qualifies for the program. What can I use my RESP money for? So as I was saying earlier, there are stipulations on what you can use the money for. I always remember doing a presentation to students about budgeting and going to university. And the one teacher whose class I was in, he was talking about OSAP, because that's something else people can apply for and get. And there's certain parts of OSAP you pay back and certain parts that are grant. And he said he never forget this one kid got his OSAP, went and bought a brand new car, and then couldn't pay for school and had to drop out. So I always think of that when I start talking about the RESP money and what you can use it for, because it is a bit more controlled. And I believe OSAP is much more controlled now than when it used to be. It's not so much just this money given to you and you can go spend it on anything. So tuition, rent, meals, living expenses, laptop or tablet, desk, student fees, other education related costs. So as much as I say there's stipulations, it's still pretty open to interpretation, because what you or I may see as a laptop or a tablet for school, someone else may use it for other things. Like, I mean, you're not going to be able to completely control what people are using this for, but it has to be school related. So withdrawals, because you're going to school now and you want to take some money out. So contributions, the money you put into the RESP, you can withdraw the full amount from an individual or family plan once the child has proof of attending post-secondary studies. So like I said earlier, that's what we asked for. We need proof that they're attending. Accumulated income, so the grants, the bond, and the interest. So you can withdraw a maximum of $5,000 out of your grants, your bond, or your interest in the first 13 weeks of full-time post-secondary studies. So there's a little bit of a limit there, but your contributions, there's no limit. In all cases, both the beneficiary and the subscriber must sign the withdrawal request. So you have to go in to sign the request. For ours, the way the credit union takes care of ours, it does take a week to 2 weeks. So I always say, make sure that when you go in, you ask how long it takes for the money to come out, because sometimes we'll have people come in and their tuition is due tomorrow and we're not able to take the money out right away, because we do have, it's like when you're in a credit union, there's another arm of the, there's another company that we use in order to hold those, and that's the way we have to do things. So we have to send that to that company, and then that company releases the money. How is an RESP taxed? The student who withdraws the money is taxed. So like I said earlier, it's better because they should be in a lower tax bracket. Only the interest is taxable since the contribution was already taxed in the parent's hands. So it's only the interest you're making. The grant money is taxable since nobody paid taxes on it when it was received. So again, they're going to get a tax slip and they will put it into when they do their taxes, and it shouldn't really cause them any financial hardship because they're probably in the lowest tax bracket possible. Because anyone who can work full-time and go to university full-time, that's a lot. That's a lot of work. And I know people do it, but it's few and far between. What happens if your child decides to not pursue post-secondary education or if you cancel the contract? Any RESP grants paid into the account are given back to the government. All original contributions go back to the subscriber without any tax penalties. Please refer to your financial institution when it comes to the interest portion that has been accumulated. There are rules involved for this portion. So again, like I said, it could be you that is getting taxed on that interest portion. So you would have to take a look at, depending on how you've invested, how it works, because there's different variables again to how that works and what happens. So who wants free government money for education? I think we all do. Education is getting more and more expensive. So it's nice to be able to help our kids if we can. I still always say encourage them to get a job and pay for some of it though. Just from my experience watching kids go to school, I've worked with many kids in my life, and if they do pay for some of it, they own it. And I think it's important for them to do that and not just have it paid for and then don't necessarily feel that obligation to stay. And I'm not saying all of them, but I think it's super important to make sure. And that's why I teach financial literacy and budgeting to kids, because I think it's really important that they do pay for some of it. And in my household, that's definitely what's happening. We are not paying for all of university because we think that they should be learning how to budget and pay for things themselves as well. Makes a huge difference. So next steps, decide what kind of plan will work best for your family. Meet with your bank or credit union to discuss your options. Start saving and getting free grant money. It's never too late to start, but with the RESP, it's super important to start as soon as possible. Mention it to anyone you know that's having children. Mention it, have them think about it. I know it's tough because often someone's on maternity leave or paternity leave and you're not making as much money, but it is something, even if you can put a small amount in, you can start collecting those grants and continue until they're 17. But as I said before, I really encourage you to meet with your financial advisor because you need to take a look at your own situation to see what's best. So resources, quiz, and definitions. It's not a test. Just ask as many questions as you need to. Like I said, even working in a financial institution, it's probably one of the products that we sell that we have the most questions about because there are so many different ways you can invest, different rules. We need to make sure we keep on it, and it changes all the time. So you want to make sure you ask as many questions as possible. You can also go on the government website and read about RESPs, and they have a good question and answer. I actually refer to it quite a bit to make sure I'm understanding it and seeing any changes. So we covered a lot. It's a lot to think about. What is an RESP? How do they work? How to decide what kind of RESP is best for your family, and about the free money that you can get to help grow them. I also encourage you, once your children are older and in high school, to take a look at the scholarships that are available. There are a lot of scholarships and grant money out there that people don't even apply for. We get told that all the time. There's so many different programs that they can apply for. I encourage mine, even in grade 11, 10, 11, to start writing down some of the accomplishments they've had. I also encourage them to join clubs and that sort of thing, because all of those resume building activities that you do are super important in order to apply for these scholarships. I adjudicate scholarships at my work, so I read a lot of fantastic, I just absolutely love reading these stories, because it's amazing what these kids do in their short time that they're at high school. And especially in the past year or two with the pandemic, just seeing what kids have done to keep themselves involved and being able to offer them some money is just such a great feeling. So I encourage everybody to look at all the different resources. If you can apply for OSAP, do it. Like, there's so many ways to get help going to university and college, but I definitely encourage you to look at this, but this is only one way. There's lots of ways to help. So does anyone have any questions for me about the presentation or about the RESPs? It's a lot of information to take in, but again, it's super important. I wish we could do a presentation the minute people get home with their baby and just say, let's start saving. Yeah, it's a super important topic, and I think it's great that you're coming here to learn it.
So I have a question, and I apologize if you don't know the answer to this. But let's say that my child starts university, we put in the money from the RESP, they get, let's say to November, and they decide, what, this was not for me, and they need to withdraw. What happens? Like, obviously we have to pay grants back. Do you know, is there a time period, or is it sort of the second they withdraw?
No, because I've had people withdraw and then not touch the money yet, because they can still in there as long as it's not hit that 31 years. So you can still leave it there, because I had someone recently actually do that. Took a year off, didn't know whether he was going to go back. His mom was like, well, let's leave it. And he did end up going back.
Okay.
And then we took some of the money out. I think what we did actually with that one was he went back and we took all the money out. So you can do that as well, right? So it has to be in for 10 years, I think it was, before you can close the whole RESP down. So you have to keep an eye on that as well. But yeah, they can certainly leave it and go back, because lots of kids take it, even kids take a year off from high school, right? And don't go right away. So you just need to double check with your institution, make sure they're good with it. But yeah, nobody's at the door when you quit university saying, okay, you're done. Get rid of that RESP, which is good, because then you've still got time.
Yeah. Ramnik, you have a question?
I can't hear you if you're talking. Or if you want to type it in the chat. Maybe not. The mute's on, so I wouldn't be able to hear. If you can take your mute off, then we'd be able to hear. So you can hear me. Do you have a question? Did you want to type it out or say it? 5 and 10, yeah. Okay, so we're talking permanent resident, then you'd be fine. Yeah, you would be fine. It would just be, you could contribute the 500. Yeah, your best bet would be to go into your financial institution and make an appointment and try to figure out what type of RESPs they offer, and then take a look at the contributions, because you can start making that contribution right away and determine what you qualify for. Like, you'll definitely no doubt qualify for the grant, but there may be other grants and items that you would qualify for, and then you could take a look at how you would invest that. You're welcome. No, it's a great time to start. They're 5 and 10. You've still got lots of time. Even for your 10-year-old, you've got the 7 years to get the grants, but you can still keep contributing. So I definitely encourage you to look into it. And you can, if you ever wanted to look how much university or college is, you can actually go online and Google and take a look at how much a credit is to give you an idea of how much it costs. There's other costs too. It's not just the credits that you pay for. There's, I know Brock lowered some of the additional costs because there's like a health cost and can't even remember all the costs they have, but there's additional costs. So make sure you take a look to see how much it is, because that gives you an idea of approximately how much you would need for each child.
Yeah, and university to university, college to college, it's different prices as well, right? So the computer science at U of T costs more than it does at Brock, but less than what it does at Waterloo, for example, right? And even program to program within a university, the credit cost can change because there's sometimes a lab fee associated with it, right? So
yeah,
it's always a good estimate, but probably until you see that bill in front of you, that's
True.
what you, yeah.
And books alone, because a lot of them are electronic now, but they're still very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Does anyone have any other questions? Well, hopefully you've learned something about RESPs today. Like I said, they're definitely, I wouldn't say complicated, but there's a lot to them. And it's important to ask questions and get some advice from your financial advisor, because that's where they're the people that are going to know your situation best. Everyone's situation is different. Goals change all the time, but it's important to keep in touch with your financial advisor. It's like a checkup. Really, you should do a yearly checkup with them. And that way you know where your finances stand. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly, for joining us here today. There was a lot of great insight that we were given into RESPs. And I know that, if you have any other questions, you can send an email to me and I can pass that on to Kelly and get in touch with her that way. So thank you again for joining us. And it's Kelly Taylor-McNeil, branch manager with First Ontario. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll see you again in some other programs with the Welland Library. Bye.
Have a great day.